meeting of the Mashpee Planning Board here at Town Hall in the McCoy Room, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass. The time is 7 p.m. Welcome, everyone, tonight. We're broadcast on Channel 18 and stream live on the Town of Mashpee website at www.mashpee.gov/channel-18. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin, real quick, Arden Russell has a public announcement.
Hi, Arden Russell, Sturgis Lane. Tonight, I am here representing the Mashpee Environmental Coalition, and I just want to share with you an upcoming event that we are co-sponsoring along with the Mashpee DPW. It's a clothing and textile collection event on August 19th from 9 to 1 at the Mashpee Middle High School. So many people don't know, but textiles are now banned from being put in the trash. They must be recycled, and actually a very high amount of textiles do get recycled, almost 100%. Many of them get reused, which is even better than recycling. So we are holding this event simultaneous to the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day, and I think there's also shredding opportunities there that day, so you can get a lot of business taken care of that morning. Items that are accepted are clothing, shoes, accessories like scarves, bags, hats, household linens, towels, sheets, curtains, stuffed animals. They just need to be dry and bagged. And an organization called Bay State Textiles will be there with a trailer, and they'll be collecting all the items. So again, it's on August 19th from 9 to 1 at the Mashpee Middle High School, and I hope you all go home and start purging.
Thank you,
I
Arden.
just want-
Yes.
Can we give like rags?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, so things
fine.
that are not saleable are definitely, you can still donate them. Not everything is gonna be sold, so they separate the items. Some things can be resold, so you can, one sock, a ripped shirt, all of that stuff, much of that gets recycled into stuffing for cushions and cars, car seats and all that kind of stuff. So that's why almost 100% of textiles actually do get recycled or reused. So yeah, it does not have to be, does not need to be in good condition.
Any condition, but.
Any condition as long as it's dry, just don't bring,
Dry and clean.
no,
Reasonably
no,
clean.
no, I mean, not full of oil or sticky stuff, but just not, nothing wet, and stick it in a bag, and they will separate the items as to where they need to go. So it's a great event. It's our first event doing this since it just started in November. So for everybody listening, and there'll be lots of advertising. Look around. This flyer will be advertising everywhere, so you don't have to remember. So thank you very much for accommodating me.
Thank you, Arden. Approval of the minutes of the meeting, July 19th, 2023. Does anyone have any changes or edits?
No.
No? No one? Okay.
I make a motion to accept as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, we have, it's 7:05, I'm going to say it's 7:05. We have the first public hearing, and I just want to say there's no public comment on this Chelco partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless. Mashpee Planning Board Public Hearing Notice. Pursuant to Mashpee General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 11, and the Town of Mashpee zoning bylaws, Section 174-24C, the Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023, at 7:05 p.m. at the Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, to consider a permit application from Chelco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless for approval to construct a 130-foot tall monopole-type personal wireless service facility, cell tower, at 524 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass. 02649, Assessors Map 67, Parcel 4. The subject property is located in the C1 Commercial Zoning District and is within the Mashpee Wireless Facility Overlay District. This application triggers a mandatory referral to the Cape Cod Commission as a development of regional impact. No public comment will be accepted by the board, nor will the board deliberate on this matter at the opening of this public hearing. The matter will be renoticed upon referral to the planning board subsequent to any approvals issued on this application by the Cape Cod Commission. So I'll take a motion to refer this to the Cape Cod Commission.
Madam Chair, just one item, if I may, before you take the motion. Just wanted to note to anyone who is in the audience who is in a butter or has an interest and may have questions relative to the application, Carl Gearing, who is a consultant working on behalf of the applicant, expressed to me his willingness to meet in the lobby after this meeting to answer any questions members of the community may have relative to the application.
Okay. A motion to refer this application to the Cape Cod Commission as a development of regional impact.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
How do you vote?
Aye.
All aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I need another motion to continue this public hearing and renotice it if the Cape Cod Commission approves this application, and it will come back to us.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All vote?
Aye.
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 Passes. Thank you. Now, we have 3 public hearings tonight. We have a few minutes. Let's see, what could we do in lieu of that?
Let's vote. Time for that public hearing on the bylaws?
Okay, let's see. That is number 8. All right.
Do we have a suggested date?
Yes.
Oh,
We have the public hearing notice, the proposed, it's a draft, right?
Correct.
For Wednesday, I think it should be Wednesday, September 6th. Do you want to check that date?
What's on there?
It's Thursday.
Well, yes, it's most definitely
I
supposed to
thought
be
we were having a
Wednesday.
special meeting.
Most definitely
Wednesday,
supposed to be
September
Wednesday.
6th, 2023, at 7:10, the Mashpee Town Hall.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Aye.
vote?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Okay, good.
What was that date?
September 6th.
Yeah, how many articles are there?
I want to say
Five?
there
Oh, it's not
are,
here.
I want to say there are 5 with 4 from you, 1 petition.
Okay.
Okay.
And you guys going to the select board?
On Monday.
Okay.
Is it this Monday?
Yes, it is, August 7th. Mhm. All right, so now we're at, this time is 7:10. The appointed time has arrived. I open the public hearing on Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC. This is, no, I have to read it. Public notice. This is the first of 2 we're hearing tonight about Southport. Mashpee Planning Board Public Hearing Notice. Pursuant to Mashpee General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, the Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 1, 2023, at 7:10 p.m. at the Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, to consider an application from Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC property owner to modify the Willow Bend Country Club special permit. The applicant proposes to construct 14-unit, single-family cottage community immediately contiguous to the Willow Bend Golf Course at 275 Quiniquisette Avenue, map 69, block 32. The existing single-family dwelling is proposed for demolition. With these changes, the total unit count for the Willow Bend project would be increased to 287 if the board authorizes the annexation of 275 Quiniquisette into the Willow Bend special permit as allowed. 287 dwelling units is the maximum number of dwelling units authorized under the special permit. All units will be connected to and served by the existing privately owned wastewater treatment plant, which serves the entire Willow Bend project. Do I have a proponent here?
We have a
No.
letter.
Any comments?
We have a letter to.
We have a letter from them.
Pardon me?
We have a letter from them requesting a
Okay.
continuance.
Okay, I didn't get that in my
Okay, will you pass
packet.
that to the chair?
I'll read it, thank you.
It's there.
All right. This is a letter dated August 1, 2023. Dear Mr. Lehrer, Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC respectfully requests that both of tomorrow night's public hearings relating to its special permit modifications be continued to Wednesday, September 6th, 2023. Thank you for your attention. Sincerely yours, Jack McElhaney, Esquire. Okay, so we're continuing both. Let me just keep this for a minute. So I take a motion to continue. I
Just
still have to
continue,
open.
continue one hearing, the
I'm
one that's
gonna
currently open, and
continue
do this again for the next
first
one.
Southworth property hearing and go to the 7,
So we have a 7:10.
So it's a motion to close
that's
that
the
one, right?
7:10. So we're going to,
On September 6th, we already have a 7:10, and that's the public hearing on our zoning bylaws.
okay, so we don't have a time for September 6th yet.
It's up to you. That's your discretion. So
Well,
I
if it's
suggest 7:20.
7:10,
You want to do 15 minutes?
Yeah,
for the
7:30.
Zoning bylaws?
7:30?
7:30. So I make a motion to continue this matter to 7:30 on Wednesday, September 6th.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, so we have a few minutes here for the second motion, for the second hearing. Let's see, what can we do now? The next one is at 7:30, so it's too early for that.
We have to close the public hearing?
No.
No, we've
Oh, we didn't open
We're
it,
going
right?
to continue it
And,
to,
All
yeah,
right.
the next one is 7:20.
yeah. I'm looking for something we can do quick. Well, we could do,
Oh, this is the,
I can fly through my updates.
you have something to say?
I can go through my updates if you'd like, Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
why don't you do that town planners update?
So last week, I think it was last week, Hazard Mitigation Planning Committee held our second public workshop. I saw a few of you on the screen, so thank you for your attendance. It was the culmination, essentially, of our community engagement effort for the hazard mitigation plan. Our consultant's working right now to put the draft plan together for advertising and a public comment period. So I anticipate that that will be publicly available within the next 2 weeks. I'm uncertain of this time of how long we'll keep it open for public comment, but for a significant period of time before making any final changes and submitting to FEMA for approval. So thank you for everyone in the Mashpee community who participated in our two workshops and who responded to the survey in support of that effort. Looking at the harbor management plan, Ashley in the Department of Natural Resources has been making progress on their efforts to have a state-approved harbor management plan. We had our second workshop at New Seabury at the club a couple weeks back, which was well-attended. I'm specifically actually working with Dale on a portion of the plan that's about regaining public access in ancient ways to water. I've reached out to the Historical Commission for assistance in this matter. Ultimately, we've identified, or my predecessor, Tom, did a lot of work in identifying ancient ways to water and public access points that are all enumerated in the 1998 Local Comprehensive Plan. What hasn't been conducted since the adoption of the plan is the deed and title research that is required to affirm the public access and the public rights to traverse those ways. So I'm hopeful that some of the savvy folks who know how to navigate the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds at the Historical Commission, and obviously the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer and the Historic Preservation Office of the tribe, between those people and resources over the next couple of years, we'll be able to solidify and regain access to some of those identified ancient ways to water. That's an interesting project. I know I haven't received a response yet from the Historical Commission. They have a meeting tomorrow, so I may go by and say hello.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
about that? So how does the shellfish plan kind of fit in with that?
I do not know. I will have to ask Ashley that question and report back to the board. If you could remind me in an email or something, I'd be more than happy to respond. And lastly, housing production plan. We launched or had kickoff relative to the update of the housing production plan thank you CPC for the money for the efforts to update this particular plan. Next week, we'll be having our second discussion with the Affordable Housing Committee to go over the draft engagement timeline and draft survey questions, with the hopes of hosting our first community workshop in support of the housing production plan in mid-September. We haven't locked down a date or a location for that yet, but you'll see that publicized, and I will report that to the board when the date, time, and location has been confirmed. We are in the process right now of stakeholder interviews. So many local business owners, real estate agents, developers, service providers, property managers at affordable housing have been contacted for interviews, as well as staff have been contacted for interviews. We're populating our interview schedule now, hopefully to complete those interviews over the next 3 weeks. I look forward to the housing production plan, and I'll continue to report back to the board.
Thank you, Evan. We still have a couple of minutes. Can we do our board member committee reports? Cape Cod Commission?
Cape Cod Commission had its One Cape Summit. Did anybody here go?
I couldn't go. I didn't have time.
Did you? Maybe Rob could tell us a little bit about it?
It was my fourth One Cape Summit, and it was very typical of their collaborative efforts. They had people from all 15 communities on the Cape, and primarily the two main topics were affordable housing and climate impact, climate change. And there's a opportunity here, maybe, for Mashpee, is that the state has now done, Bob, can't think of his last name, but there is an effort on by the Cape Cod Commission to kind of merge the two together, housing, climate change, and kind of economic development, into a kind of a task force and a incubator organization that will invent or initiate new ideas to solve these problems, make affordable housing more resilient to storms and so forth, and where to locate them and so forth. They have not located their facility yet. It will be located on the Cape. I think Mashpee has an excellent opportunity to solicit to have it located in Mashpee. Some years ago, I wrote a letter to Buff Chase suggesting an incubator space be provided there, and maybe there can be things that can be developed. But they hope to have 4 or 5 scientists, college scientists, work in the incubator this year, and increasing it to, a dozen or so. And it's going to be kind of summer internships, as well as, a think tank and an incubator for ideas that will marry these pressing issues for the Cape together.
So how many acres do they need for this incubator site?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. We'll pick up with the rest in a little while. All right, the time is 7:20. Time for the second public hearing on Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC concerning the 853-bedroom cap. Mashpee Planning Board Public Hearing Notice. Pursuant to Mashpee General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, and the Town of Mashpee Zoning Bylaws, Section 174-24C9, the Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 21, 2023, at 7:20 p.m. at the Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, to consider an application from Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC, property owner, to modify the Willow Bend Country Club special permit. This application requests that the existing condition in the November 1991 special permit modification decision affirming the limit of the total number of bedrooms within the Willow Bend project area to 853 be amended, submitted by Mary Wagon and Mashpee Planning Board. I guess we're going to continue that too. Pursuant to the letter, I don't need to read the letter again. Pursuant to the August 1st letter, may I take a motion to continue the matter to September 6th at 7:40?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Wow. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Our next hearing is at 7:30. I see our proponent sitting back there, but it's not time. We have 10 minutes more. So we'll go back to the board member committee reports. Community preservation, Mary?
So I was wondering if we could go back to Cape Cod Commission and maybe,
Okay.
so it looks like they're looking for an incubator site. I don't know if our town planner knew that.
Did not know that.
News, it might be something that might be worthwhile for us to kind of think about and introduce that concept to maybe the EDIC and the Board of Selectmen. It would be a big boom for Mashpee to locate a site, even if we just let them borrow it for a while, if it was title land, or reach out to some community partners to see if they would let them borrow it or buy or something.
Okay.
So,
Community preservation?
do you want me to work with the town planner on that as
Yeah.
vice chair?
It's up to Evan and what do you want to
Problem with
do?
me, I could certainly
Okay.
help facilitate that.
Okay.
All right.
Rob, do you want to help us with it?
Sure.
Okay. Does that sound good, Madam
Yeah,
Chair?
good.
All right, good. We're a team.
Community preservation.
Community preservation, so the articles, 3 articles, funding recommendations went to the Board of Selectmen for inclusion on the warrant. 2 of them were taken off the warrant. It was the $60,000 for the Affordable Housing Trust and the $200,000 for the disc golf. The Board of Selectmen have not voted on the money for the historic cemetery restorations.
Okay. Design review, no meeting. We do have 2 of them coming up next week. It's been a while. Evan, plan review,
Plan review has not met.
not met. Environmental Oversight Committee, Dale?
Next meeting, August 30th, 6 PM. Mary, let me know.
Any information?
No new information.
Okay. And Historic District
We
Commission?
met last week and we picked out a color chart
Oh,
and we gave Evans permission for certain things, just to get the okay instead of trying to get a quorum for the meeting because we don't have enough members. So
Yeah.
for certain easy things.
Yeah, they pre-approved a historic color palette so that there could be administrative approval of colors for commercial buildings in the historic district. Commercial facilities require a certificate of appropriateness for color. And convening a meeting with the historic district for that purpose has been quite challenging lately, so we put together a palette of pre-approved colors.
What is the period of time that color palette is looking at?
I can't recall, Karen.
Okay,
I can't recall.
all right. Well, let's see. I still have a few minutes here. On water quality, I was casting about looking for something. I turned to the Department of Natural Resources. A lot of you probably may think you already know this, but, you know, it's just good to look at it. I can say I've done some of these things. It's on Ashley's site. Slow it, spread it, and sink it. Did you get one, Dale?
No, I didn't get one.
oh, is that the low
No, right.
impact?
Wait
a minute.
Is that for runoff?
Yeah, pretty much.
Give me another one.
Yeah, Helen? That's all right.
I knew this.
The picture, yeah, here you go. Shows.
Great.
You can see the good things here. You've got the dry creek bed with the rocks.
Yep.
That's coming off the splash guard there. And then you've got that little rain garden there, which is good. Rain barrel, if you want to, I am opposed to rain barrel thing unless it's closed because of mosquitoes around here. You see the rain dripping down into the bushes on the left there. That's a good thing to do. And the paver stones, and I think you want to, as they're saying here, disconnect driveways and roofs. Evan, would you agree that if you have a gravel driveway, that might not be so important as opposed to an asphalt driveway,
It depends how water's directed, I guess, in your asphalt driveway.
if it's really flowing toward that way? So redirect stormwater to lawns, dry wells, rain barrels, or rain gardens, that's pretty evident. Maintain natural buffers, reduce lawn size. I think on one of our projects, we have asked for a reduction of lawn size to 1,000 square feet.
In numerous of the older cluster subdivisions, there's conditions.
hear
for-
you.
In numerous of some of the cluster subdivisions approved post-1985, more or less, there are limitations on the size of the lawns.
Okay. Reduce lawn size, water usage, and fertilizer. And we all know how bad fertilizer, excess fertilizer and pesticides when they run off into the street and finally make it to the watershed. So just take a look at this and look at that link. That link is pretty good. So,
That looks good.
That's great.
I think the more pervious surface you can get, the better driveway. If you can get a pervious surface driveway, any way you can get it, you can make it look nice. We should all aim for that.
you have any other suggestions, Dale?
This they did a good job.
The other thing I told you I planted a clover lawn. I mean, it's not really that great yet, but it's coming up, and it really isn't bad looking, and that would mean I don't have to use fertilizer,
Yep.
because clover makes its own fertilizer.
You don't have to mow it.
You do have to mow it, because if you don't want the flowers, those white flowers which attract, bees, if you want to walk on the grass, you cut it down, but still clover just keeps coming back. Good evening, and your name is Jeffrey Dirk?
He just joined. Say that again, Karen.
Good evening, this is Karen Faulkner at the Mashpee Planning Board. Jeffrey Dirk?
Yes, good evening. How are you?
Oh, we're good, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Now, how do you pronounce your company? Is it Vanas?
Yes, it is. That's correct. Vanessa and Associates.
Okay. So just hold on, because I've got to open the meeting. Thank you. All right, it's now almost 7:30. We just have to wait a minute here. Well, I have to wait. Seeing that the time has arrived, it is now 7:30. I open the public meeting on the project located at 532 Main Street. Mashpee Planning Board Public Hearing Notice. Pursuant to Mashpee General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81T, and the Mashpee Rules and Regulations governing the subdivision of land, the Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 6, 2022, at 7:20 PM in the Wacoit Room at the Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, to consider an application by Marcelo Malegny of 80 Airport Road, Hyannis, Mass. 02601, for approval of a 9-lot definitive subdivision plan of land consisting of approximately 18.05 acres located on Main Street, that is Route 130, between Nicoletta's Way and Echo Road and identified on the Mashpee Assessor's maps as map 26, block 6. This lot proposed for subdivision is within the C3 Limited Commercial District, the I1 Industrial District, and the R5 Residential District. Plans may be reviewed in the offices of the town clerk or town planner at Mashpee Town Hall. Submitted by John Falone, Chair, Mashpee Planning Board. Okay. I recognize the party proponent, Attorney Mr. Corain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board, for the record, Attorney Christopher Corain, representing the applicant. When we were here a few months ago, we were, well, it's been a few continuances, but we were waiting on the results of the traffic impact study. I understand that that has been completed, and Mr. Dirk here is on behalf of the firm that completed that study. So at this point, I don't have much more to say. I know the board has questions for him, and, I'm just here to see, at the end of that discussion, whether or not the board is comfortable that they have enough information to vote on this project, or whether or not there's anything else that is needed from the applicant before the board is comfortable voting on the project.
Okay. Shall we call Mr. Dirk? Okay, Mr. Dirk, you're on.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Jeffrey Dirk. I'm the managing partner with Vanessa and Associates. And I think you heard from the applicant's attorney, we were retained by the town to undertake a transportation impact assessment to evaluate the impacts associated with the proposed subdivision, and then determine a couple of things. First was looking at the design of the access and the subdivision roadway and provide some recommendations as it relates to that, and then looking at off-site impacts, so how the project would potentially impact Route 130 and specific intersections along Route 130, and then developing some recommendations for consideration by the board as they're weighing the applicant's proposal. So if it's helpful, Madam Chair, I can walk through an overview of the transportation study, and I do have a copy of some of the questions that were submitted by yourself and maybe some of the board members, and I can address those as a part of my overview as well, and then get into any specific questions you might have.
Mr. Dirk, so that we can understand this, so some of us are not that familiar with the traffic study, if you would, kind of follow that outline that you received, because we kind of want to know the level of service on areas in the road. That's what we do want to know.
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
So would you rather have me focus on the questions that were asked or the study itself?
Why don't you do the study itself and then go to the questions?
Sure, absolutely. As I said, I'll work in some of the.
Is that okay with you,
the
Mr.
responses to
Crane?
Some of those as well. So for those of you that are not familiar with the transportation impact assessment, what we're doing as a part of our study is we're assessing the impacts of specific development proposals on all modes of transportation. So we're looking at impacts to motor vehicles as well as pedestrians and bicycles, the flow of each of those modes of transportation, and I think most importantly is safety as it relates to all roadway users. So the transportation assessment looks at impacts of the project as it relates to those various roadway user categories. So in undertaking the assessment, there are a series of standards that we follow, both professional standards as well as standards that are set by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, and in this case, the Cape Cod Commission as well. As you're all very familiar with the seasonal fluctuations of traffic volumes on the Cape, and you're experiencing the peak conditions now, we do look at both what's termed average conditions, which you would consider, non-summer conditions, as well as peak summer month conditions, and look at how the project affects traffic volumes under both of those conditions. The goal of any mitigation that we develop is really to make sure that we mitigate and offset impacts of the project under average conditions. And then for summer conditions, we want to make sure that we're not creating gridlock. So we may have conditions during the summer that you're like what you're experiencing now, which is things are at their design capacity, maybe over capacity, but hopefully not creating gridlock, because we don't want that to happen. But then during the rest of the year, the majority of the year, 9 months or so, conditions would be hopefully improved as a result of any recommendations we have. So the first thing that we have to understand is existing conditions on the roadway network. So we perform traffic counts at intersections and on roadways. In this case, our study area was Route 130, and then the intersections actually on either side of the project site, so at Nicoletta's Way and at Echo Road, and then at the Bakers Road, Sturgis Lane intersection as well, given that the proposed access will come out essentially opposite Bakers Road. So those were the three intersections essentially that we looked at as a part of the study. As I mentioned, Route 130, we measured both speed and volume of traffic along that roadway over a 2-day period, so 48 hours. All of the traffic counts that we had performed were done in May of this year, so 2023. The traffic counts were done while public schools were in regular session, which is important as we're conducting our assessment. The time periods that we looked at to evaluate were basically the commuter peak hours, when volumes are highest on the roadway when people are coming and going to work. So that would be 7 to 9 in the morning is when you have a peak time period that happens during the morning. In the evening, the peak time period happens between 4 and 6 during that time period. So those are the time periods that we studied. And as I mentioned, on Route 130, we looked at traffic volumes over a 24-hour period, 2 days in a row. One of the reasons we do that is we want to make sure that as we're looking at the 7 to 9 to 4 to 6 time periods, is that we actually capture the peak. So that 24-hour traffic flow profile allows us to also make sure that the peak occurs between 7 and 9, and then there's another peak that occurs between 4 to 6. So we were able to validate that with the 24-hour counts. As we look at the peak time periods on the roadway, the peak morning period happens between 7:15 and 8:15 a.m. And then the peak time period in the evening happens between 4:15 and 5:15 p.m. So that, as we look at it, means that we did correctly bracket the time periods when we perform the counts at the intersections to make sure we collected data during those absolute time periods. Just for context, the volume of traffic on Route 130 under average conditions is about 10,775 vehicles per day. So that's two-way traffic on that roadway over a 24-hour period. As you look at peak summer month conditions, that volume grows by another about 3,000 additional vehicles per day. So from 10,775 vehicles that are average, you then go to about 13,775 under peak summer month conditions, just rough approximations in terms of those numbers. So clearly, there's an increase of about 26% of thereabouts in traffic during the summer time period, which I think is no surprise to anyone. The other thing that we measure that talk about safety, one of the critical things on safety is the speed that traffic is actually driving along that roadway. What we want to make sure of is, we have congested conditions during the summertime, so if we measured speeds during the summertime, the speeds would actually be lower than they would be during the remainder of the year. So as we're looking at a design condition for the purposes of our assessment of sightlines, we don't want to look at the slower speeds during the summertime. We want to look at the speeds during the 9 months of the rest of the year. The posted speed limit in this area is 45 miles an hour on Route 130. We measured the speed of traffic over a 2-day period in May. So May average conditions are just shy of 11,000 vehicles per day. So we measured the speed of about 22,000 vehicles over that 2-day period. The majority of those vehicles, and when I mention the majority, it's the speed at which 85% of the vehicles that we observed, they traveled at or below that speed. Was just below 45 miles an hour. It was between 42 to 43 miles an hour. And again, under average month conditions when we don't have congestion on the roadway. So that's really the design condition that we're looking at, is the 85th percentile speed, as we term it, is pretty close to the posted speed limit. So when we make recommendations, and as we're looking at sight lines for the intersections as well as the proposed subdivision roadway, we're basing all of that on 45-mile-an-hour speed along 130 because that's the prevailing speed of traffic on the roadway. The other thing that we look at with respect to safety is motor vehicle crashes. So when a motor vehicle crash happens, if it exceeds the reporting criteria where you need to file a police report, that police report then is sent to the Registry of Motor Vehicles and to Mass DOT. And Mass DOT collects that data. They actually check it and validate it, and then they publish it for us to use in conducting safety assessments on roadways and intersections. So we looked at 5 years worth of crash data. So that crash data, the most recent 5-year period that Mass DOT has validated is between 2016 and 2020 inclusive. So we looked at that 5 years of crash data that's available from Mass DOT. And what we found in looking at it is, first, there's no high crash locations. So what we do is we're looking at crashes at intersections. We compare the number of crashes that are occurring to the volume of traffic that's going through the intersection. And if the number of crashes is disproportionate to the amount of vehicles going through the intersection, then it's considered a high crash location. And Mass DOT publishes for us crash rates so that we can assess crashes in relation to volume of traffic and see if it exceeds any of their crash rate data. So as we're looking at the crashes at the 3 to 4 intersections, so Echo Road, Bakers Road, Sturgis Lane, and Nicoletta's Way, again, no high crash locations. And in fact, as we looked at it, there were no crashes, so 0 crashes were reported during that 5-year period that exceeded the crash reporting criteria at Nicoletta's Way or the Sturgis Lane Bakers Road combination intersection. At the Echo Road intersection, there were 5 crashes that happened at that location. 3 of the crashes resulted in property damage. Only 2 resulted in personal injury. There were no fatalities that occurred within the study area. So again, just looking at safety as it relates to the study area, no high crash locations, no crashes were reported through the Mass DOT data at Nicoletta's Way or at the Bakers Road Sturgis Lane intersection that would exceed the reporting criteria, meaning no one reported a crash that went to the Registry of Motor Vehicles or to Mass DOT at those locations. And then at the Echo Road intersection, we had 5 crashes over 5 years, so 1 per year. 3 were property damage, only 2 resulted in personal injury, and the number of crashes occurring there, so 5 over 5 years, was not disproportionate to the volume of traffic going through the intersection, so it wasn't a high crash location. So what we also do in our transportation assessment is similar to you sitting as a planning board. We're trying to provide a planning tool for the town so that as other development projects come along, both the present and the future, you're able to look at our traffic study and be able to basically look at cumulative effects of development projects in the area. So to do that, we look at a 7-year planning horizon. That's actually set by Mass DOT. So we're required to look at the impacts of the project not as they occur today, but as they may occur 7 years in the future. That 7-year planning horizon is basically set to allow for this board or other town boards, to the extent that you approve the project, it allows for the applicant to go through the approval process, obtain whatever approvals are necessary, and then actually build the project and have traffic be generated and added to the roadway network. So that what we're looking at in 7 years is a constructed project 7 years in the future. And the key part of that is to make sure any recommendations or mitigation that is proposed or recommended, it doesn't just work when the project is open, but that it has some life to it. So that as other development projects in the town occur and that there's general traffic growth, whatever is built works into the future as well. So that's one of the reasons for that 7-year planning horizon. It allows you to approve the project, let it get built, add the traffic, and then have some life to the improvements that may be recommended as a result of the study. So the 7-year planning horizon, the way that we generate the traffic volumes is we work with the town planner. The town planner identifies for us any projects in the area that have not yet been constructed that may add traffic. So we undertook those conversations. There were no projects in this area that we were asked to include in the study itself. The other component is what's known as general traffic growth. So if the town were not to approve any other projects in the community, there is going to be generally an increase in traffic. And that increase in traffic, I usually describe it as if you have someone who's in your household now who's not yet of driving age, maybe in the next 7 years they will obtain the driver's license. They will essentially be a new vehicle that's on the road, maybe driving to school or driving to work. That's not there today. So that's what general traffic growth would essentially be, is to account for increased automobile travel that may result from increased automobile ownership, new drivers on the roadway, other projects that might not yet be considered that may go through the approval process. So for the town of Mashpee, the general traffic growth as published by the Cape Cod Commission is around 0.6%, so it's less than 1%. We generally use a 1% growth rate for any growth rates that are less than 1%. We use 1% for that growth rate. And that's consistent, again, with what the commission would recommend for use in this area. So our 7-year planning horizon is essentially the May 2023 traffic volumes projected 7 years in the future using that 1% per year compounded annual growth rate. And then what we do is we look at the project. So how much traffic is this project itself going to generate? So the project as a subdivision being presented to you is basically just 9 lots. And it's, as you heard from the description of the zoning in the area, it's commercially zoned. So in order to assess the amount of traffic we're going to generate, we need to have a project. So some definition to types of uses or building sizes that may go on each of these lots. One of the advantages we have in this area is we have kind of a similar type of layout along Echo Road and Nicoletta's Way to be able to look to see what are the building sizes along those roads and how much traffic is produced by the types of uses, because there's mixes of uses along those roadways. So our assumption in looking at the subdivision is that given that it's located in a similar area, similar type of zoning, similar lot sizes, is that this development would probably be advanced similarly. So working with the assessor's office, we looked at the parcel sizes, the building sizes, and the types of uses along each of those roads, so along Echo Road and Nicoletta's Way. And what you find is that on average, the size of the buildings along each of those roads it's close to around 9,000 square feet on average. So we assumed that for the purposes of this subdivision that the building sizes on each of the lots would range somewhere up to about 10,000 square feet. So we assumed that 9 lots, 10,000 square feet each, we'd have about 90,000 square feet of building area constructed on those lots with the requisite parking. So some buildings might be a little bit larger, some might be a little bit smaller, but consistent with what you see as development along Nicoletta's Way and Upper Road, that's what we're expecting would be built out along this proposed subdivision roadway as well. The other thing that we have is we have traffic counts on Echo Road and Nicoletta's Way, so we can look at the volume of traffic that's produced by the development on each of those roadways. So we looked at those traffic volumes. We also looked at industry standards for a similar type of uses, which are actually classified as specialty trade contractors. So a specialty trade contractor would be where you have a building, and it might be like a landscaping company or a plumbing company, where they use the type of facility as either bays where you start off your day, you come in, you pick up your truck, you pick up whatever supplies, or you come in with your truck, pick up whatever, and then you leave and then for wherever you're going during the day for your work, and then you'll come back in the evening. There may be a small office within there. So it's that type of use where it's really trades-type people operating out of businesses. And that's what you see along both Nicoletta's Way and Echo Road. So a specialty trade contractor use is a land use classification that we actually have trip generation data for through the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So the Institute of Transportation Engineers publishes data for various types of land uses, traffic volume data. So we as transportation professionals, if we know the type of land use that's being constructed and we know the size of the buildings or number of units in a residential project, we can look at data that's been published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers and come up with estimates for the amount of traffic that might be produced. So we did use the specialty trade contractor land use to develop the trip characteristics of this site at assuming 90,000 square feet of development. And what we actually found was those numbers are pretty close on a per 1,000 square foot basis in terms of the amount of traffic that's generated to what's being currently generated along Echo Road and Nicoletta's Way. So it, again, validates the assumptions that we had used for the proposed subdivision itself. So in using that approach, we've estimated the project would generate about 884 vehicle trips on a daily basis. So that's two-way traffic over the operational day of the facility of the uses along the roadway. It's 442 vehicles in and 442 vehicles out. So if you're keeping track of all of the numbers that I've gone through, the 884 is what gets added to the 10,775 vehicles on Route 130 under average month conditions and the 13,775 approximation under peak month conditions. So that's how you would add those numbers together and see what the net increase in traffic is on the roadway. During each of the peak hours, so I had mentioned we counted from 7 to 9 in the morning, and that the peak hour occurs between 7:15 and 8:15 in the morning. During that 1 hour period, our estimate is that the subdivision is developed as we suggested would produce about 149 vehicle trips. It's 111 vehicles entering, and 111 vehicles entering, 38 exiting during that time period. In the evening during the peak hour, so this is the 4:15 to 5:15 time period, we estimate that the subdivision would produce about 174 vehicle trips, 56 vehicles entering, 118 exiting during that time period. So that's by way of net increase in traffic that we're expecting the subdivision could produce if it's developed in a similar manner to what you have along Echo Road and Nicolens Way. The way that traffic will actually distribute itself onto Route 130, we looked at, again, existing traffic patterns in the area, and what you'd see is the prevailing travel patterns on the roadway is about 35% of that traffic would be oriented to and from the northwest on 130, so heading back towards the canal. About 65% will be heading basically into Mashpee, so to the south along 130. And again, that's reflective of what we see existing traffic patterns on the roadway. So if you're looking at the subdivision road, the majority of the entering traffic will be turning left to enter from Route 130. The majority of the exiting traffic would be turning right to exit from the subdivision roadway. So that's the prevailing turning movement that will occur at the intersection. So a long way of getting to where the chair had asked, which is to look at what the levels of service on the roadway itself. So we've estimated this traffic. As I said, we projected numbers into the future 7 years. And then as we're looking at the impacts of the project, what we're looking at is we're measuring two things. We're measuring motorist delays that occur at intersections. So if you're coming out of the subdivision roadway, turning left or right, how long do you wait to actually get out onto 130? If I'm driving on 130 and there's a vehicle that's turning left to go into the subdivision, how long do I wait behind that left-turning vehicle? And then those delays turn into vehicle queues at intersections, so backups of cars. So if you come up to a stop sign and you have a certain number of cars there sitting in front of you today, and then we add the traffic in the project, how many more cars are waiting at an intersection during this
Jeff,
condition?
may I interrupt you for 1 minute? I think we know the roads down there, and I think it would be helpful if we on the board here knew a little bit about that level of service and whether it's going to be very little delay or over capacity or just where we would be, like mention the roads, the intersections, so we can get a good flavor of what's happening there.
Absolutely. And don't let me drone on too long. I didn't know how much you're familiar with the traffic studies. That might be helpful for background, but to get right to your point, so we're reporting levels of service, and I know this is a question. So the level of service is how we correlate delays at an intersection to a letter grade of intersection operation. So the levels of service are A through F, with A being the best operating conditions, about 10 seconds or less of delay, and F is a failing condition. So that, at an unsignalized intersection, that means you wait more than 50 seconds to be able to make a left or right-hand turn. A level of service of D is considered the limit of acceptable traffic operations, and that's 35 seconds of delay at a location. So ideally, we would like to have no movements operating below a D. A D is considered to be acceptable. What we do find is we're looking at the intersection, so we focus on the subdivision roadway to start with. Under average month conditions, generally you have good traffic flow.
Could you name the roads?
Exiting the subdivision. So it's
Jeff?
a level of service of C.
Jeff, could you name the roads and tell us what the level of service is and what that means? I think that's helpful.
So we'll start at the Echo Road.
Echo Road?
So at the Echo Road intersection, we'll start with the easy thing, which is the flow of traffic along 130. the flow of traffic along 130 is unimpeded. It's a level of service of A. That doesn't mean that at some point during those peak hours, there might be a vehicle turning left, but over the course of the hour, it's generally free flow conditions, so it's a level of service of A with delays of 10 seconds or less. If you're exiting Echo Road, so you're making a left or right-hand turn, it's a single lane. So whether I'm making a left or right-hand turn, you experience the same level of delay. If there's someone in front of you making a left, you have to wait if you want to make a right. So the level of service for people exiting Echo Road with or without the project is a level of service of C. And so the delay for a level of service C is less than 25 seconds on those approaches. And that's under average month conditions. The queuing that happens on the Echo Road approach is about 1 vehicle during the morning and 2 vehicles during the evening under average conditions. So not significant in terms of queuing. Now, if I look at peak summer month conditions, I still have a level of service of C exiting Echo Road during the morning time period. But in the evening time period, the delays increase so that now that approach is operating over capacity. So it's a level of service of F because of the volume of traffic along 130. So once we're at an F, it's an F with or without the project. Now I want to look at what is the increase in queuing with and without the project. So without the project, the queue on Echo Road is 5 vehicles. With the project, the queue goes to 6 vehicles because of the extra traffic on the side. So it's an increase of 1 vehicle in queue in terms of the impact of the project. So now if we move down the road to we'll look at the Bakers Road intersection next, and that's where the project's going to come out. So under no-build conditions, so without the project, because I'm going to separate the no-build from the build, because with the build condition, we create the subdivision road, which creates a 4th leg to this intersection that doesn't exist there today. So without the project and without the 4th leg added to that intersection, under average and peak month conditions, the vehicles that are exiting either from Bakers Road or Sturgis Lane, it's a level of service of B. So the
What is it,
delays
B?
are less than
B?
15 seconds. I'm sorry, B is in boy.
Okay, and when Lemar Drive is open and what happens?
So when Lemar Drive is open, for anyone that's exiting from Bakers Road or Sturgis Lane, nothing changes for you. There are delays, it's a level of service of B. The delays are still 15 seconds or less. The subdivision roadway, as they're exiting from Lemar Drive, the delays during the morning, it's a level of service of C, so it's similar to Echo Road. So you have delays of 25 seconds or less. During the evening time period, the delay during average month conditions is a level of service of E. E is an echo. And the delays for a level of service of E are less than 45 seconds coming out. During the summer month conditions, exiting from the subdivision drive, we have a condition where it's operating over its design capacity. So similar to Echo Road, it's a level of service of F during the evening only. And during the morning, it's still a level of service of C, which is less than 25 seconds of delay. So it's only an F during the evening. And I think very similar to Echo Road, the vehicle queue on the subdivision road is 6 vehicles. So again, that's back into the subdivision. If you're on any of the roads across from the subdivision roadway, again, no changes in terms of delays or queuing. So the delays are experienced on the subdivision roadway, and the reason for that, of course, is the large volume of traffic along 130 that conflicts with anyone's trying to exit. But I think if you're kind of trying to look at it in terms of what you know out there today, it's going to operate exactly the same as Echo Road does. So delays exiting during the evening time period with queues of up to 6 vehicles. I think the critical thing as you're looking at the queue is that backup is internal and along the subdivision roadway. It in no way impedes the flow of traffic along 130. And the properly designed subdivision road, which is a part of our recommendations, even if you have 6 vehicles queued up exiting, it does not impede the ability for emergency vehicles to be able to enter or exit. And again, that's really a key thing on the design of subdivision roadway. Once you know you're going to have queuing, you want to make sure that a fire truck or a tractor trailer, in the case of making deliveries, it needs to be able to we'll look at it if the traffic's backed up, trying to get out, and an emergency vehicle needs to make a right-hand turn to enter into the subdivision roadway. That vehicle cannot cross into where the vehicles are all backed up on trying to exit. So it has to be able to flow into the subdivision roadway in an unimpeded manner. So that really just gets to the design of the roadway, which is something that, again, our recommendations I would suggest. We'll get to those in a minute. So the last intersection that we looked at was at the Nicoletta's Way intersection. During the average month conditions, vehicles exiting Nicoletta's Way were at a level of service of C. So under average month conditions, with vehicle queues of 1 to 2 vehicles. So delays were 15 seconds or less. Queues were 1 to 2 vehicles. Under peak summer month conditions, there's actually more traffic exiting Nicoletta's Way during the morning time period. So what we found was that is at a level of service of E. So it's at its design capacity. So again, that's where we're talking about that 45 seconds or so of delay coming out. During the evening time period, there's actually a little less traffic exiting, so that's at a D during the summer month conditions. So it's a little bit different than Echo Road and the subdivision roadway, where during the morning time period, we have a significant amount of traffic, or more traffic exiting, so that what we show is a level of service of E during that time period at capacity. The queuing during the summer month conditions is 2 to 4 vehicles, so I wouldn't consider that significant in terms of how it operates. So that's the reporting of the operating conditions at the intersection. So you can see, with the exception of looking at the peak summer month conditions, generally the operating conditions coming out of any of those roadways is at a D or better. And where we would have an E or an F condition, even under the summer month conditions, the queues aren't excessive to the point where they block the ability of traffic to enter from 130 to travel down any of these roadways. And I think the key thing as it relates to the subdivision roadway is to make sure it's the width of the road is appropriate, and then importantly the corner radii. So as it transitions onto 130, that there's appropriate radii so that vehicles can turn onto the subdivision roadway from 130, recognizing that maybe queuing trying to exit the facility itself. So the last thing that we've looked at before we get to our recommendations is sight lines exiting the subdivision roadway. So as you heard me speaking about the speed of traffic, so the prevailing speed is just below the posted speed limit of 45 miles an hour. So we're assessing sight lines. So if you're coming out of the subdivision looking to the left or right, we're assessing those sight lines based on 45 miles an hour. So at 45 miles an hour, and you're looking to the left or right, you need to be able to see for a minimum distance of 360 feet to see an approaching motor vehicle, and then make a determination that it's actually safe to be able to exit, turn left or right from the subdivision roadway. So we assess the sight lines for 45 miles an hour. 360 feet is the minimum that's required. Looking to the left or right, so as you look to the south, so looking to the right, the sight line was 650 feet or more than 650 feet. If I look to the north, what we did see is there is roadside vegetation. You have the advantage to the south that there's the shared use path, so there's some clearing of vegetation to accommodate the shared use path, which then crosses Route 130. So the sight line's looking in that direction because the vegetation or absence of vegetation is over 650 feet. Looking to the north, the sight lines were limited to just over 108 feet in that direction. So we do have recommendations for some vegetation clearing, selective trimming, removal of vegetation looking to the north, so looking to the left when you're exiting from the subdivision roadway. That clearing would occur within the public right-of-way, so it's with whatever approvals are required from the town. It's not on private property. So again, it will be all subject to review and approval by whatever town boards are necessary to obtain those approvals. So that's kind of the context of the transportation impact assessment. As a result of all of that analysis, we have a series of recommendations that we've made as it relates to the subdivision roadways, the design and operation of the subdivision roadway, and then we also have some off-site recommendations to deal with conditions that are outside of the subdivision roadway itself. So if we start with the subdivision roadway, In terms of the design of the roadway, we've recommended the roadway be a minimum of 24 feet in width. Sometimes commercial roadways will get up to 30 feet in width. We generally do not want any roads any wider than they need to be, so 24 feet we think would be appropriate for the 9 lots that are there. With the provision that there's a sidewalk along at least one side of the roadway. And so we've suggested that that sidewalk be along the south side of the roadway. The reason for that is because the shared use path is on the west side of Route 130 as it approaches where the subdivision roadway is. And then it crosses over, as you know, between, or just south of where the subdivision roadway will come out, so between Sturgis Lane and Baker's Road. So having the sidewalk along the south side allows for a connection to be made between that sidewalk and the shared use path through the subdivision itself. So we suggested 24-foot wide subdivision roadway, sidewalk along the south side, and that the shared use path have a spur come off of it to connect into the sidewalk that we're suggesting should be constructed along the subdivision roadway. And that at where that connection, where the spur comes in and will intersect the proposed sidewalk, that you also have a wheelchair ramp or a device to allow for bicyclists to transition from the shared use path and then down onto the subdivision roadway, and then they'd be able to ride on the roadway to get to a destination along the road. So that'll provide the connectivity for both pedestrians and bicyclists to the shared use path. We've also have recommendations as it relates to, as I mentioned, the corner radii. So the corner radii, as the subdivision roadway comes out and intersects Route 130, needs to be sufficient so that an emergency vehicle and a tractor trailer can turn left or right, either entering or exiting from the subdivision roadway. And as you heard me mention, since we're considering queuing and backups that might happen during the evening time period, we want to make sure that as a truck or an emergency vehicle is turning right in this case to enter from Route 130, if there are vehicles queued up trying to exit, the vehicle should be able to turn so it doesn't cross into a queued up line of vehicles. So that's a consideration as we're looking at the design. And that just can be accomplished with a proper corner radius when the design is developed. Also, those sight lines that I mentioned, what we recommend is when the site plans are put together, that what's shown on the plans are the site triangles. So the site triangles are that what I described, which is the vehicle as it's exiting. So you actually put the vehicle on the plan and you draw a point between where the driver is in that vehicle and then a point along Route 130 where the approaching driver would be. And that forms a triangle as you connect the points. That triangle is where those sight lines I mentioned need to be kept clear. And so what that allows, if you put that on the site plan, it shows you exactly where the vegetation trimming may need to take place to the north, which should be it should be a discrete area, not a large area, and then it's in the public right-of-way. The other thing with the site triangle, putting it on the site plans ensures that there are no signs, landscaping, or other features placed within that area as the applicant is thinking about, those type of amenities or providing some signage or things that the site triangle basically says don't put anything in this area when you're thinking about those things. So you actually want that shown on the site itself. So those are the recommendations that we have as it relates to the subdivision, design of a subdivision roadway. Again, they're pretty standard of what would be expected for the type of roadway, but hopefully as the plans advance, this provides some guidance to the applicant as they're developing those plans. So now looking at the off-site intersections, again, the project didn't really have any significant impacts at Echo Road or Nicoletta's Way, so we have very minor recommendations as it relates to those roadways. So it's really looking at kind of some existing deficiencies that we identified as a part of the assessment. At Echo Road, there's a stop line that's missing, so the painted white line on the pavement that goes along with the stop sign. We had recommended that that be put in place. It's a minor thing, but it's actually an item that, as we look at where we want vehicles to properly position themselves when they stop, the stop line does that, so that we recommended that that be put in place at that intersection. At the Nicoletta's Way intersection, we did recommend two things there. The first is the stop sign should actually get put back behind the shared use path. Today it's in front of the shared use path. The stop sign tells you that's where you're supposed to stop your motor vehicle. So if there's not a stop line, you stop where the stop sign is. So in this case, if you actually did that, you'd stop on the shared use path. So what we've recommended is that sign be put back before the shared use path, so on the Nicoletta's Way side of the shared use path, and then you do the similar thing, you paint the stop line at that location. And that's really to get some visual cues as a stop before the shared use path and make sure that you don't block the shared use path. So again, minor recommendations at that location. The last set of recommendations as it relates to off-site does deal with the shared use path crossing. So there's a couple of things that we have as we look at that. The first is that, as the town may recall, there was a road safety audit conducted by the University of Massachusetts, actually, along this section of Route 130. The road safety audit was really focusing on crossover crashes, so vehicles that may be crossing the center line, as well as some run-off-the-road type of crashes. And so the road safety audit produced a series of recommendations to address the crash patterns that were happening along the roadway. A number of those have already been implemented. Some enhanced signs, some enhanced pavements, pavement markings have all been implemented. However, there were some recommendations as it relates to the crosswalk and the crossing at this location that have not yet been done. And I think there's some recommendations unrelated to the crosswalk that we're dealing with some of the high crashes that we can now look at implementing at this location. So where kind of, as you look at it as it relates to the subdivision, so really, how do these recommendations relate to the subdivision? Well, there's a couple of things. The first is we're creating a new intersection opposite Baker's Road. So anyone that's turning right, exiting the subdivision, is going to cross right over the shared use path. It's not right at the intersection, but it's close enough that there's clearly an interaction that happens for exiting traffic. The other interaction that happens is we have more entering traffic that's going to cross. And as I mentioned, there's 65% of the traffic that's expected to enter and exit the subdivision is oriented to the south of the site. So it's going to come across that crossing and then turn left and go in. So all of that means we need to provide some enhancements to that crossing to make sure that it's highly visible to anyone who may be approaching it, or for people that are exiting the subdivision roadway, because they're going to encounter that relatively quickly once they exit the subdivision. So the recommendations we have as it relates to the crossing is to provide those enhancements. So the first thing is, instead of having just the two parallel painted white lines across Route 130, an enhanced crossing treatment, which would be doing what's known as the ladder or continentals type of pavement marking. So that's you stripe actually the white line longitudinal. So you have a ladder type of crosswalk that it would exist. That's much more visible to anyone that may be driving along the roadway. So it'll stand out and have a much more pronounced appearance to the crossing. The other thing is enhanced crossing warning signs. So a shared use path crossing signs should be installed at the crossing as well as in advance of the crossing, so that you're informing motorists as they're approaching the crossing, but as well as when they're right at the crossing. And to go along with that, the other recommendation is to provide yield line markings on the approaches to that. So those are the triangles that are put in the roadway. You may have seen those in advance of some crossings as well. Lastly, as it relates to the crossing, is we've also recommended that a rectangular rapid flashing beacon be put in place. And I know you've probably seen those elsewhere on Cape Cod. Those are done a lot of times when we have rail trail crossings and similar shared use crossings. So those are the flashing yellow lights. So if a bicyclist or a pedestrian is crossing at this location, they can push a push button, or you can have a radar type device that for a bicyclist, they don't have to push a button. It will detect someone waiting there and start the lights flashing. So the lights would flash yellow to let motorists know that there's a pedestrian or bicyclist crossing at this location. They can be solar actuated. In fact, that's what we would recommend here. So there's no need to run power to this location. And again, more environmentally friendly because we don't have the running of solar batteries. So that's what we would recommend at this location. So those are the enhancements to this crossing. We do think it's important to consider those enhancements, again, just given the fact that we're creating a new intersection that doesn't exist today in close proximity to the shared use crossing. So we think it's important that consideration be given to implementing these enhancements. The last set of recommendations are non-physical, so don't require any construction. It's really just something as the board may be thinking about conditions as just impose what's known as transportation demand management program for the subdivision itself. So these aren't anything that costs anyone within the development any money, but what it is to make sure that as new tenants or tenants come in, that they inform their employees of the opportunities for non-automobile related travel to reach the site. So this is making sure, that as these sites are developed, that there's bicycle racks provided, that employees are informed of the fact that there is the ability to walk or bike, and given the fact that the shared use path is there. Unfortunately, at this time, there's not public transportation service in this area. However, the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority does provide on-demand transit service. So that's something, it's really about letting the employees know that these amenities exist and how they might be able to access them, and then making sure that as these sites are developed, they connect to the sidewalk, that there are bicycle racks provided. So we try to remove as many barriers to the use of alternative modes of transportation as possible. So I've probably gone on too long, Madam Chair, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you or other members of the board may have at this time.
I have a couple of questions. This property is divided into 3 sections. You got commercial in the front, industrial in the middle, and residential in the back. Did you take into account the commercial lots, if you had like a restaurant, how much traffic that would generate? Or you just did it by industrial lots, all 9 lots?
Yeah, right. So we assume that the contractor type of facility, as I mentioned, specialty trade contractor, which is essentially a mix of commercial and industrial, to the extent that there is, if for some reason there were residential use developed on all or a portion of this, it would generate less traffic. The traffic volumes and the patterns might be a little different in terms of entering and exiting distributions, but in general, what you'll find is residential use will generate less traffic than a commercial use. And I think an added advantage is we're looking at impacts that you would also have. Residential is going to have less truck traffic.
No,
So I think it's.
I'm asking you about the commercial use, because the commercial use is in the first 2 lots, right off of Main Street. You could put a brewery there, or a restaurant there. I'm not asking about the residential down the back. I'm asking about the front. Did you take that into consideration? That could be 100 cars more added to that piece of property.
So I think it's within the type of land use that we use would account for various mixes, because we don't know what's going in there, and we don't know the exact type of uses. We know the general uses that could be allowed. What we've used for the trip generation is consistent with a mix of types of uses. So yes, I mean it would account for various types of commercial uses within those lots.
All right, you keep on saying commercial. But okay, another thing, further up in Sandwich, they're putting in, I think, 600 apartments. So there's going to be some more traffic on Main Street on 130. Did you talked about Mashpee only. Did you take in consideration, another year or 2? You said you looked at past Evans if there's new projects coming aboard. But did you look into the other towns that and that one in Sandwich is close to Mashpee, there's going to be quite a few more cars on 130. And they would be probably going to the Mashpee Commons.
I didn't
I think so. Most of that, if it's heading into the area for, like you're talking about, for shopping opportunities or things like that, it would generally be, if it's not really commuter-related traffic, it would be included in our 1% growth. So that would essentially account for, some, if not all, of the additional traffic that may result from that. So I think it's built into that growth rate that we have.
Okay. And when you talked about the residential, I see you could, if you ever want to develop that, you could come off a Schumann Road. I thought at one time when this project was coming, we were concerned about that part of the property.
I think that's an outstanding question. The residentially zoned portion of the property as well as the westerly most portion of the industrially zoned area of this parcel are required to be deeded to the Conservation Commission as open space pursuant to a 2002 DRI decision from the
Okay.
Commission. So any land uses related to the westerly portion of that, whether it be residential, industrial, or any other use, are really irrelevant, considering that no development can occur on the site until that deed restriction is placed upon that portion of this particular property.
Oh, all right, so we get, okay. That's all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So Jeff, on the transportation demand management, would the only thing that would apply to this project, because we don't have public transportation there, would be securing the bicycle parking within the individual development sites?
I think so. I think the other thing you'd want to consider is just making sure that they do, wherever the buildings are laid out, you want them to connect to the sidewalk that's built along the subdivision roadway. So basically for the physical construction of the lots is to ensure the connectivity to the sidewalk and then the bicycle racks. And the rest of it is just, providing the information to the employees.
Do you, in looking at these recommendations, it's on page, this is the executive summary, if you've got it on your, laptop or whatever. Do you recommend that they do everything under the project access? Do you recommend everything under the project access? Is there anything that you're recommending all of them, but are certainly some are more important. There are like 8 things under project access. Are you recommending that they do all of that?
Yes, in fact, I would think if the applicant hasn't had a chance to look at it, they're all just good engineering practice. So I don't think there's anything in there that is something that, their site engineer wouldn't do anyway. So I don't think there's anything that that is onerous in terms of what they would do. Again, I think it's pretty standard in terms of what would be expected to accommodate the traffic associated with this type of a development.
Okay, and the same thing with the off-site and the 130 shared use path crossing and Route 130 at Nicoletta's Way. Everything there should be covered, and whatever needs to be put in the plan needs to go in the plan.
Correct. That's
all these
right.
things.
And I think so one of the points that you had made as well is that all of the recommendations as it relates to the off-site, they're all located within the public right-of-way. So these are all improvements that can be undertaken by the applicant with the requisite approvals from the town. There's no other approvals required other than from whatever town agencies might be necessary.
So, given the fact that you said the level of service is pretty good, it's not, a couple of times it reaches F, level F, but this plan, as you've studied it, is a safe plan, and we're not going to create any more hazards or issues than we have, which are very minimal at this point. Putting in Lemar Drive is not going to create a problem, is that what you're saying?
That's correct. The project is not going to create what I think we would call undue congestion as a result of construction. Yeah, to the extent that there are delays, they're not delays that impede the flow of traffic along Route 130. They would be delays on the side streets, and they're not much different than what you see on Echo Road. So it's basically about the same.
Well, they're different than ones on coming off Echo Road, because Echo Road is sometimes level F at peak hours, at traffic, like 4:15 to 5:15, or
Correct.
morning.
That's right. That's right. But if you're driving along Route 130, it's not something that's the construction of this project isn't going to impede your travel. It's really just for anyone that might be exiting from the subdivision roadway.
Makes sense. Are there any other questions from the board? Mary?
Hi, my name's Mary. I think I'm off camera for you, but I just wanted to go over some of the project access points that you make. The project site, the first one is the project site roadway and individual driveways which will intersect the roadway should be a minimum of 24 feet. Can you see on the plan what it is now?
Excuse me, of existing conditions?
Yes, not existing, their proposed conditions, is it at 24 feet?
Yeah, we're recommending the road be 24 feet in width. That's probably consistent with the other roadways in the area, but the 24 feet is what the minimum should be to accommodate commercial type of traffic. To have two-way traffic on a roadway with a mix of trucks and automobile traffic as well. And again, that is with a sidewalk along one side of the roadway.
So did you look at the proposed plan to see if it was already 24 feet?
I don't know if a different plan has been put together. We do not have a
Okay.
plan that has detailed roadway layout
Okay.
and width to it. So that wasn't something that was provided to us. So that's why we provided the recommendations, is to provide some guidance as to the roadway width. The layout that's been proposed certainly can accommodate a 24-foot wide roadway with a sidewalk along one side.
Okay. All right, and then you talk about in your fourth bullet point under project access, you talk about recommending a sidewalk that's 6 foot wide. Could you just explain for me, again, why it's important to have something that's six foot wide?
So generally what we recommend, so the 6 foot for Americans with Disability Act compliance, you want to have it, usually it's 5.5 feet if you include the curb. If you don't include the 6-inch curb, so 6 feet gives you basically from the edge of the sidewalk on the building side to the face of the curb. Otherwise, it's a 5.5 foot sidewalk with a 6-inch reveal curb, which gets you to 6 feet, essentially, just the width.
All right, thank you, sir.
So it's a question of whether, if you're using low-impact design, if for some reason you have Cape Cod berm, I don't know what they're going to propose along the roadway. The 6 feet is going to give us some variation to be able to account for whatever the design of the road may be. Because again, if you're using Cape Cod berm for low-impact design, then we might have a different recommendation. But the 6 foot is generally what we want to have for ADA compliance.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions from board members? Mike, you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Do you have any other questions, Dennis? Dale? Yes?
I like the way you said you were gonna put those flashing signs near Sturgis entrance, so if the people want to cross. But I like to see 2 signs past Echo that say trucks entering on the right or left, coming north and south on the thing. Further down so people know, hey, there's an industrial park coming up here. Because 45 miles an hour is fast, and if a truck pulls out with their trailer behind it, and you don't think there's a trailer, you're gonna hit the trailer. So if you see us, I like to see that in the plan, too, beside the flashing sign.
Where would
Yeah, I
that
think
go, on
that's a
Echo
good
Road?
idea.
No, go
I mean, coming in,
about past, further up from Echo Road, before you come to.
further up to Mashpee and further down towards Sandwich.
Sandwich. Sign saying trucks entering on the right and left, caution. Just
Where would you put that, Jeff? How far from the
At
entrance?
least 100 feet, that's.
Yeah, for that speed, it's at least 100 feet is what would be recommended for 45 miles an hour.
Okay.
I put them up before. Okay, that's.
Any other, Dale, do you have a question?
Is this project in the refuge? Is it in the refuge?
In the acquisition boundary of the refuge.
Okay. And have you thought about ways to maybe have less new curbs? Maybe connect somehow these 3 roads?
They already tried that.
Already tried that?
Yeah, that didn't work out right. For 2 years, they went back and forth, and they couldn't come up with an agreement. Which is too bad.
Rob?
Yes, I had a couple of questions pertaining to, is it Lemar Drive entering onto 130? You mentioned a stop sign, and you mentioned moving the stop sign in 4 feet or some further up. I'm very curious, you got a stop sign, you got white stop lines, and how far from the actual roadway of 130 will that stop sign be? And is it, if you stop at the stop sign, you then, by law, proceed with caution to enter the roadway. If the stop sign's far enough back from the roadway,
Can't see it.
you can't really proceed. And therefore, you cannot leave the stop sign area or the line. Can you elaborate on your design for the stop sign and the stop line and relative? And will we be able to get a detailed sketch of that whole intersection with the sidewalks, the stop lines, the blinking lights, and the obstacles that may be impairing view, such as signage and/or foliage?
I just want to make one thing clear before Jeff responds, that Jeff is the consultant who did the traffic impact assessment, so any detailed drawings that you'd like to see on the plans, you need to request of the applicant.
Yes, okay. But, yeah, but an explanation of the stop line and stop sign relative to the roadway, I would appreciate your comment.
Yes, no, absolutely. So generally, so there are distances, as you described, there's distances that are acceptable in terms of locating where stop signs are. The general location is that it's 5 feet back from the extension of the curb line. So if you took the curb line along 130 and you extended it straight across an intersection, the stop sign and the stop line would be set back about 5 feet from that extension of the curb line. And so that's where it's traditionally placed. You are allowed to place a stop sign within 75 feet of that curb line extension to account for things that might be happening between where the curb extension is and where you want the vehicles to stop. That presumes that you have proper sight lines at the location, so that, to your point, if you stop too far back and you can't see, you're not going to stop there. You're going to creep up to the intersection. So the 5 feet back allows for proper sight lines, because where we measure the sight line is actually 14 and a half feet back from the extension of that curb line. So we place the stop sign and the stop bar 5 feet back. It gives you those proper visibility lines. But the other thing that it does is we're talking about the shared use path, and we were just talking about the width of the sidewalk. Putting it 5 feet back allows for a crossing to happen as well as at the intersection. So if I put a crosswalk in front of where the stop bar is, by putting it back about 5 feet, it would allow for a pedestrian or bicyclist or so to be able to cross, so that if I stop there, it allows for that front end of the vehicle. It's not sticking out into the road as it relates to either pedestrian or bicyclist that may be going by the intersection. So that's where, if there's no other impediments, that's where we're going to place the stop line. Extend the curb line through the intersection, offset that extension 5 feet, place your stop sign, and mark your stop.
Okay, and you mentioned a crosswalk in front of the stop sign and the stop line for that?
Yeah, we won't have that for the subdivision road, because the crossing is actually going to be the shared use path. There's no crosswalk, there's no sidewalk traveling to the north of where the subdivision roadway is. Actually, as you know, it crosses the road and then it's on the east side. So that there won't be any crosswalk across the subdivision drive. That's why we want that spur, essentially, to connect to the shared use path, to then connect to the sidewalk and the proposed enhanced crossing.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? No?
Just want to confirm to the board that the proposed width of the drive right now, edge of pavement to edge of pavement, is 24 feet.
Okay, 24 feet, good. All right, well, I think, do you have anything you want to say, Mr. Corain?
No, I mean, other than the fact that if the board wants to see those recommendations put on a plan before, entertaining any type of vote, then that's not an issue.
That's what I was going to say, that
Sure.
those design plans should be on the plans, and anything on that last category, like the bicycle racks or bicycle parking, on that transportation demand management, that should be on the plan.
The only thing about that is that there's no if the bike racks are going to be, I don't know if the suggestion was the bike racks on the individual lots. So we wouldn't, I don't know that we'd show that, but that may be a good thing for site plan review to be aware of when they're reviewing it, that they require, bike racks as part of that process.
It says here, secure bicycle parking should be provided within the individual development sites, so that means the lots.
Right, so again, I guess we can show them on a plan, but I think it may be better served later down when you're actually developing those properties. And that, again, site plan review, that could be something that would be on their radar.
It's a condition that we could capture in any certificate of action that gets filed with the town clerk and then thusly pass
Okay.
through to any permit granting authority for
Right.
any lots that would be created by the proposed subdivision.
Because every one of these lots that would, if potentially to be developed, would have to go through site plan review and design review.
And also, I think what we should do is continue this matter. If you put those design points on the plan, and also you need to get a certificate of compliance from the Cape Cod Commission on those 2 was it 1?
4 acres.
Acres.
Okay.
That's going to go to conservation.
So I understand where the board is coming from, and I want to be able to relay this to my client clearly, that this board will not take a vote on this unless that's done prior to.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
before the applicant goes and we continue,
Oh,
I do have some questions when you're ready.
okay, go ahead.
Okay. So Ed Pesci is not here, available to us tonight, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Can he come to our next meeting?
Yes, he had an unexpected family event today, which is why he is not here today.
Okay.
I do have an email update from Ed that he sent me shortly before this meeting. If you have any questions, I may be able to
No,
respond to that.
his letter on this is dated March 28th, right?
Correct, yes.
That's the only letter he gave to us.
Correct.
Right? If we could just have him confirm in writing, it's been a while
Yeah.
since we met with him. If he could just confirm that all of these changes are on the plans.
Understood.
All of which changes?
So on March 28th, Ed Pesci gave us recommendations for changes on the plans. And normally, he's usually here and we say, are these all in the plans? The applicant says yes, he says yes. But since he's not here, maybe we could get that in writing from him before our next meeting.
So we need those, and we need what's here in the traffic assessment.
Well, I think what you need is confirmation from
Yeah.
Ed
Yeah,
that that's been done.
confirmation from him.
Because I'm sure, my hope is that those things have been taken care of already, so.
I think they are,
Right.
but it's nice to have
Yeah.
him confirm.
I mean, given the fact that we're continuing it anyways, I have no objection, that's fine.
Okay, so when do we want to continue this to? What do you think would be a reasonable time? May take some time to get the
Right.
compliance from the Cape Cod Commission.
Yes, so I know that as part of that Cape Cod Commission decision, they have to review the deed and the plan. And it sounds like you're looking at probably a heavy agenda on the 6th, so maybe the second meeting in September,
20th.
and see if that will work.
Okay,
Make a motion,
go ahead.
make motion, we continue the public hearing. This is
Public
September.
comment, Madam Chair.
Oh,
There's
Oh, we had
been,
some public
somebody is saying
comment, you're
public
right.
comment.
Anyone want to come up and have anything to say?
Thank you. My name's Lance Lambros. I'm from the Nicoletta's Way Trust Association. We always, when we developed our industrial park, planned that there would be development on that side of the road. We've always been supportive of it, and we're very happy that it's going to be a local developer that does it. When we came to the public hearing last year, your board asked us to consider allowing the applicant to use our road, Nicoletta's Way, as access to that property. I think, and the transportation engineer is here, so maybe he can verify this, but certainly when we had that public hearing, unanimously, I don't think there was anybody that disagreed that it would be better for them to use Nicoletta's Way than to have a new curb cut on Route 130. So I just want to let you know, we didn't blow you off. We took that under advisement. We spent our own money, hired an attorney. We gave the applicant a proposal that we thought was fair. We don't understand why it didn't work, but we want to let you know that we still stand ready to make it a deal with him in response to what the planning board asked us to do and what the neighbors have asked us to do. So if the applicant changes his mind, and by the way, we're supportive of this project, whether he uses our road or whether he doesn't, we just think it would be better if he accessed Nicoletta's Way for a bunch of reasons. One, we think it would save him money. We think it would have bigger lots. We think he could do, development immediately, like he could start clearing land tomorrow. So we don't understand why, but I want you to know that when you asked us, we took it into consideration and we did our due diligence to try to make that happen.
Thank you, sir.
Okay?
I would like to see that happen. I mean, I asked that beginning, because Sturgis Way is gonna be a hard thing for the people living there.
One way to make that happen would be for the,
Name?
Arden Russell, Sturgis Lane, I'm going to butter to this property. One way to make that happen would be for the town to take Nicoletta's Way and then condition this subdivision to use that road. So I am still extremely concerned, even after hearing the traffic report about another intersection, another curb cut on Route 130. I don't believe it meets Section 17440 of the zoning bylaw, which requires any intersection to be 200 feet from another intersection, which it is not from Sturgis or from Bakers. The Select Board Policy Number 10 regarding curb cuts has the exact same requirement, 200 feet from another intersection. I urge you all to review the town planner's memo of May of 2022. He listed a variety of reasons, a variety of issues that this development does not meet, including elements of the local comprehensive plan. I mostly heard about concerns regarding delays and congestion, which are annoying, but what we're concerned about is safety. And I didn't hear a lot addressed about the safety of the amount of activity that is going to be going on in a very small area. It's going to be impossible to navigate an intersection to the north, an intersection to the south, both less than 100 feet away, and then a multi-use crossing stuck in the middle of that. How I'm supposed to see all those things happening at the same time while I try to leave my street, I just don't understand how that's going to happen, and we're going to now add 884 vehicles to that mix, to that mess. Route 130 is a gateway into Mashpee. It's the first thing people who come over the Sagamore Bridge experience before they come into Mashpee. Is this the experience that we want them to have, or are we trying to improve the level of service on this road? Again, I urge you to please deny the curb cut, deny the subdivision road, and force a solution that would work for the safety for the entire community. And I also want to thank you for demanding the certificate of compliance. That's been an outstanding issue for 20 years, that this parcel of land has not yet been dedicated. It's open space, as I said, 20 years. So thank you for demanding that before any decisions on this is made. Thank you.
Thank you, Arden.
I just quickly want to respond to 17440 doesn't apply because this lot was in existence before 1996. So we've already, I think that question has already been asked and answered. I don't want to get into the Nicoletta's Way issue. I'm not denying that we tried to work with the trustees. They tried to work with us. It didn't happen. And I don't know that this board can force two private parties to come to an agreement if they can't come to an agreement. So I think both parties tried and it just, for whatever reason, didn't work out.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Is there anybody else from the public?
Anyone else in the public wants to speak? No? All right, so we're continuing this matter until, what is the date again?
December 20th
September 20th
at
at
7:10.
7:10.
I'll second that motion.
Vote?
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you very much. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff? Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gray.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, let's see, is there anything left that we have to do?
Aquay.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's why all the people
Old
are here.
business. All right, where we left it last time with Mr. Moran, who was not here, is he here tonight?
He is not. I have exchanged emails with Jacques relative to the traffic radar sign, which you had asked me to communicate with him last we met. I have not received a purchase order from him yet. He has indicated which model he would purchase, which is compliant with the special permit, and I've also urged him,
Wait, excuse me, he has not purchased it, or he has?
he has indicated his intent, but has not delivered me a purchase order.
Okay, all right. All right, well, that was something that he had to do, and we had left it that there would be a default entered if he didn't. But I'm going to give this man one more chance if the board agrees. He has 7 days from 7 business days from today to bring over a certified check to the town planner
Or just proof of purchase.
or proof of purchase. He doesn't have to install it, the DPW installs it. If he does not, then we will enter, can we enter a default at the next meeting retroactive to 7 days, 7 business days?
I mean, presumably you could vote to declare him default effective 7 days from tonight, at which time I would submit a letter to the bank
I would
requesting the
recommend
money.
you do that.
Okay, motion, Mary?
No, I don't want to make that
Okay.
motion. Michael seems eager to make that motion.
Second.
Well,
spent too much time on
let's
it.
say what the motion is again. Michael?
I'll make the motion that you just said.
The motion I'm suggesting the board consider would be to find the developer in default of the tripartite agreement securing completion of the subdivision known as Aquay Highlands dated March 20th, 2019, in 7 days from tonight, if proof of acquisition or purchase of the required traffic radar sign is not delivered to the planning department by next Wednesday.
Do you
Proof
wanna
of
give him
acquisition or ordering?
Or, yeah, purchase order.
Or
proof of
purchase order.
Purchase order.
That's exactly what I
Do you
said.
want to do 7 days or 7 business days?
7 business days?
I'll say 7, well, 7, it makes no difference, but
7
7
days, I
business
mean,
days.
is he either going to do it or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
So
None.
we're
Motion
saying.
passes.
Well,
Yeah,
wait,
what the
we're-
board is considering, Dale, so the developer has a number of obligations he needs to complete.
Right, wait, but, so didn't we say last time, if he didn't have it,
Yes, we did.
and now we're saying,
That was the last time we said we would enter a default if he did not purchase that radar sign
by this meeting?
by this week. He has
So
not.
now we're saying, one more chance?
He has 7 more
7 more
business
days.
days.
7,
We're
And the
showing
curtain
a kinder,
closes.
gentler part of our.
this is it.
This is it.
Truthfully, planning board, I have a significant workload and would love to compel this developer to comply with the terms of the permit without having to go through the process of notifying his bank and trying to collect the money. So if we can
Amending the
give him a
tripartite
cushion with a
agreement.
firm deadline, I'm hopeful that he will comply. If not, I will happily proceed with the
Okay,
declaration.
there are no more chances. This is it.
Yeah, aye,
So
All right, do we
it's
have
on
any
me a
good
Good
lifeline.
with your vote?
good.
Okay.
You said by
Unanimous.
7 days.
All right.
I went up there that rainy night, around 11 o'clock at night. It seems like it's working pretty good there.
Oh, my drain, yes.
Yeah, I went up there, it was kind of dark, I couldn't really see it, but it seemed like it was draining.
Yeah, it is
pretty-
very well.
Pretty well.
Tim,
so-
are you happy? Are you happy at least with that particular issue?
I can't hear you.
Are you happy at least with the drainage problem that we've tried to resolve?
Oh, yes, very happy with that, yes.
Good, glad to hear.
And I did note the mountain of dirt. He is moving dirt. There's still a pile, but he is moving dirt. I'd say he's moved over 100 cubic yards of dirt. There's a lot of work to go to get it back to grade, but there is dirt moving and moving off-site.
That's good news.
Is there any public comment on anything, anyone else? Yes, sir?
My name's Timothy Dorsey, and I've lived on Blue Castle Drive coming up on 24 years, so I wasn't, when I bought, it was 1 acre zoning, and then they switched it to the cluster development, and I fought that. So I've been watching Mr. Moran and his activities, and, we've had our problems over the 6 years that he's been there. I think that he's overstayed his welcome. And now on Carriage Road, there's setbacks that need to be made and a square footage allotment that, for the special permit on the houses that were being built on these lots. And Mr. Moran has a foundation plan that he submitted, and in the back setback, it shows 23 feet. But then he built an 18 by 18 four-season room, electricity, skylights, all shingled as part of the home. I've been to the building department. The building inspector said he'd take care of it, but I want to make sure that that's part of the violation of the special permit. He can't, it's like 5 feet from the back property setback. He's right on top of the property line with this addition that he built on this home. And I don't want it to set precedent for all these other people on the road to want to do the same thing. So I don't know, you know, he's a seasoned builder, he knows what he's doing, he's done this before. He's taken a chance and built this addition, and it's like the whole house is covering the property.
Excuse me, Evan, is this within our purview, or this is really a building
Well,
department issue?
Tim, if you did you file a written complaint with the building department?
I didn't file a written complaint, but I talked face-to-face with the building inspector, and he told me that he was going to take care of it. But I just want to make the planning board
understand.
aware of everything that's going on with Blue Castle Drive and where we're at with this project now.
Do you know what number carriage it is, Tim?
Excuse me?
Do you know which number carriage road the house is on?
Yes, 16.
All right. I'll follow up on it with the commissioner tomorrow to make sure he's on.
Okay. That's all I have to say.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Come on, you've been sitting there all night. You gotta come up and say something.
At least just a hello, I guess.
Yeah.
Mike Ronhock, 104 DeGrasse. I'm just curious of how many chances you're gonna give this guy?
This
I
is
mean,
the last
it.
chance.
I mean, seriously?
Yeah,
Well, you know-
that's it.
I mean, he still hasn't done the lots that he's supposed to have built, right? He's still got 3 lots, piles of junk, piles of dirt, and you're gonna give him another chance because of a sign?
Well-
I mean, really? What about all the other stuff? He's not gonna be in compliance with that in 7 days.
I think from the department's perspective, I'll give you my perspective. In 2 or 3 months' time, we've brought the developer from substantial incompletion to substantial completion of the project. The subdivision is complete when the roadway's installed and the utilities are installed, not necessarily when the houses are built. So from the purview of the board, with the completion of that sign, that subdivision is complete from the position of the board.
It's on the list as an attachment to the tripartite agreement.
That's right. So the developer has been often certainly difficult for the planning department to work with, but the board, due to your actions, has brought what I would call general noncompliance to substantial conformance. And so I know often it might seem like leeway, but there's been a substantial amount of movement in a positive direction. And
Forced.
the hammer will drop in a week's time on this remaining $3,000 or $4,000 to procure the traffic sign. But subsequent to that, there really are going to be building code-related issues, the driveways, any additions that exceed dimensional criteria of the special permit. I'll make sure to stay on these things with the building commissioner, but there's a little bit of give and take to push in the right direction. And certainly, we know you've all endured pretty uncomfortable living conditions for a number of years. And we are cognizant of that. But I've been trying to guide Mr. Moran in the right direction and compel substantial movement in the right direction. And so I know at some point everyone says, oh my God, they're being loose, but I don't feel like we've been loose. I feel like there's been substantial progress, and I hope that's
Well, it's true,
recognized.
there has been some progress there, and it's comical because we can tell when it's Wednesday and it's a meeting, because the guys are over there working on Wednesday, because someone's gonna take a ride down the road to see if he's actually doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah. They
you know,
saw me
other
there
than
the other
that, it's a ghost town.
I understand.
He's not there. So, yeah, whoever, you know, if you can push the storage of the equipment, and that stuff's been there for years, literally years. And the amount of dirt that's been moved up that pile, that's Arthur Joya buying some fill from him. He's not moving it. Arthur Joya was over there moving it, so he's buying some fill from him, and that's all that's been moved, and it's none been moved since then. So, I mean, whoever's, if it's zoning, if it's building, whatever, it's some, you know, they haven't really pushed them. I mean, the Conservation Commission pushed them because I called them,
and had them get this stuff off conservation property. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done that either, so.
What did the building commissioner say anything about them storing large?
Not yet, because it's in conjunction with building permits. You know, he says ongoing construction in the site. So if there were storage of material that wasn't in conjunction with an active building permit, there would certainly be a violation, a land use violation, because you can't, there's no outside storage of materials. But as long as he's under construction, that's difficult to enforce.
Well,
We can certainly ask him to clean it,
Yeah.
but, you know, there are jurisdictions and rights.
Dennis has been over there and see how much equipment he has there. There's no way you can even put, with the amount of junk that he's got there, you couldn't even use that equipment because there's no space to use it. He's got excavators, front-end loaders, he's got bobcats, he's got 2 excavators, he's got two dump
Those
trucks.
Bucket things,
Yeah.
bunch of
It's
stuff.
massive amount of equipment there. It's a contractor's yard at this point.
So is it,
It
so has
really
the
isn't a
building commissioner
construction
made a definitive
No,
decision?
there's been no firm definitive
You
answer.
might want to see if he'll make a decision. And if he makes a decision in a certain way, you can appeal it to the Board of Appeals.
Who?
If the building commissioner,
Building committee,
Right.
David, right, okay.
right, nice guy, you
Yep.
know, but if he makes a decision that this is related to the building permit, you disagree with that, you can go to the zoning board. of
That's his
appeals.
purview for all that stuff. It's not underneath this agreement for the.
Does the board want to submit a written complaint relative to the storage of materials just to get an answer from the commissioner, so it's not up to Mr. Ronock to do?
I would.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, you
So
guys
moved.
should be asking him.
let's make a motion. Have
Yeah.
a motion?
Yep, that we send a written complaint to the building commissioner based on the testimony of the neighbors, that there is heavy equipment and other non-site related construction materials stored at this site
Yes.
that have nothing to do with the building permit.
Absolutely, there's a lot of that.
That we, yeah, we
Old
want,
fencing and
yeah.
We want to ascertain.
Yes,
what the-
ascertain.
What the function of these are these pieces of equipment related to this particular job site, or are they just?
Well, the only active
I'd rather see
permit
them
he's got
take
is a,
them,
the only active,
Get rid of them.
Yeah.
You don't need
But
them
if it's
there.
for the job, you can't make them.
well, the only active permit is that one on Carriage Road, right? And,
Yeah.
and the house is built. What do you need probably a 25-ton excavator for? It's all graded and
So-
everything.
So are we submitting a complaint to
Or a
the
10-wheel
building
dump truck.
commissioner regarding
Yeah.
this heavy equipment and building materials?
He's just
Yeah,
storing
we'll,
his stuff there.
well, the board, I'll submit the complaint. On behalf of the board, the commissioner evaluates and renders a determination.
Right.
Positive or negative,
Simple as that.
and then,
And once that action happens, if you're not satisfied with that
Yeah.
action, I don't mean to put the building commissioner on the spot, but this
No, I
is what
get
he
it.
does,
I get it.
he's good at this. You can,
Yeah.
if you don't like that decision, you can bring it to the zoning board of appeals.
Well, that's what, before, on the previous meetings, we kind of thought that that's what you guys were going to do. You were going to recommend that they get, Board of Health or Building Commission was going to review what he was doing over there, but I'm not saying that you didn't do that. I'm just saying that's kind
I
of
think we
how
got some
I
verbal,
interpret it.
yeah, I think we got some verbal feedback, now we want some written feedback.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think there was some communication, but now we're gonna put it in
Okay.
And
writing.
I think, I'm
Okay.
sorry, sir, what is your name, the man in the red shirt again?
Oh, Mr. Dorsey.
Mr. Jordan?
Tim Dorsey.
Dorsey.
Dorsey, Mr. Dorsey, yes. I think, it might be advisable, I'm not telling you to do it, but maybe you want to do a formal complaint as opposed to just a verbal. I think perhaps,
Well, I will say, the building department operates on written complaints.
there you go. Here's your answer.
There's a complaint,
the
there's a complaint
setback
form, in the building department, but, I'm more than willing
Email.
to assist with that.
Mr. Dorsey, tell me again, the setback was 23 feet?
From the existing foundation, and then after he had the structure built, he built the addition.
Up to 5 feet?
5 feet right up to the
Okay.
property line. in
That's
the
pretty
back.
egregious.
Yeah, that is, I thought so, so,
It,
yeah.
It's very
it just, it needs to be
deceptive.
evaluated. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm operating on an assumption that a permit was filed and it was done in accordance with the permit, but we obviously want to have that evaluated.
Yeah, there was a permit filed, and it exceeds the square footage that the special permit allows for the.
Okay?
Yeah, he has a copy
Put
of the
that in your
plot plan
complaint.
and stuff from the building.
And
Put that in my
attach.
complaint, and I guess that's it. I don't know where they're gonna take it, but like I say, I just don't want it to set precedent for all these houses to to start building all these
Right.
additions. He
I
has
see
it,
what
I
you're
want it.
saying. It will just go right down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah,
it.
okay. Yeah, I got it.
All right, well, thank you very
Good luck,
much.
Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yep.
All right, I'll entertain a
Make a
motion
motion
to
to adjourn.
adjourn.
Okay.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 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 aye.